What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to Gamertag VR. Today we have an interview with the developers of Wanderer VR. Now, if you're like me and you've seen the trailer, you was already hyped for this game anyway, but trust me, after watching this interview, I do believe you'll be even more hyped than you were previously, because I know I am. Before we get into the interview, they've given me 2 keys to give away, one on Steam and one on PSVR. All you need to do to be able to win those keys on launch day is be part of the YouTube notification army over in Discord. This has already been vetted by the team, so there are no spoilers, or what they feel isn't spoilers, so don't worry about that when you're watching it. There's just a lot of great information, and yeah, I hope you really enjoy it, and if you do, remember to hit the like button and subscribe.
Well, kid, if you're watching this, then you made it. This far, at least. What I'm about to tell you might seem crazy, but it's important that you understand what's about to happen next. This world you know, battered and broken, is not the world that was intended. There are those that believe humanity was always fated to destroy itself. They'll tell you this future will always be inevitable. But this is a lie. You see, we perceive time and space around us as fixed, a clock steadily ticking ever forward. However, the lines between the past, present, and future are an illusion. Nothing but a thin veil behind which lies the path to many possibilities. I have left you everything you need to put things right. But be careful. Not all is what it seems. You must finish what I could not.
Cool. So what's your names? How you doing?
Right. My name is Eugene. One of the directors here at Wanderer and one of the co-designers.
Yep. And my name's Ben, and pretty much the same kind of co-direct and co-design.
Nice. How many of you are in the team in total?
Yeah,
Kind of fluctuates a little, but we have a pretty solid core team of around 6, but then, during the majority of this development, we expanded out. And so I think at its peak, what did we get up to? Around about?
when we have it, I think like in the studio, we had like 18 people.
Yeah.
Core team at the moment is about 6 or 7.
16, yeah.
We've got a sound guy, he works remotely. So
Oh no, that seems a lot of people are working remotely at the moment. So let's talk about the studio quickly. Previous titles and what made you want to do a virtuality game.
mainly like mobile stuff, worked on a few like parody games. One called Drump, which was like came out just prior, we launched it prior to the 2016 elections in America. It went quite well. So
Yeah.
we've made a few more mobile titles, and working with Huge and stuff, we started to find there was like a natural gravitation towards like VR, and like I guess like after the hype of trying it and stuff, you start to think about the potential.
Yeah.
And like the market as well, which I think is still underserved, and like the ability to kind of, I guess, make waves in that market is probably maybe easier for an indie, but you've also got to grapple with the difficulty of creating VR content. So
I always find that fascinating when a studio decides we're going to make a VR game, because even larger development studios don't want to touch VR still. I think with the launch of PSVR 2, Quest 2's shown that it's popular, but I think when PSVR 2 happens as well, that's going to be a massive inrush again. And but still, for a studio your size and you guys, there must be an element of risk.
I mean, of course. Yeah, I think when we started this, we kind of took a little gamble. We thought, VR's on its way up. There's certainly potential there for it to be quite big, and we just really liked the immersiveness of it. So we thought, well, let's start now. Let's get our hands dirty. Let's get into it and really understand the medium. so that, you know, as it matures and as we as a company mature, we can really be part of it in a big way. So I think that was just a decision early on that we thought, yeah, let's just give it a nudge and see how we go.
Yeah, and to be clear, your your trailer was astounding. I think a lot of people, when they saw that, they were like, damn, I need to pay attention to this game. And then obviously at the end of the first trailer, you see that it's actually multi-platform as well. So you're aiming for Oculus. You're not aiming at Oculus Quest. You're aiming for PC VR and PlayStation VR. What was the idea behind doing PC VR and PlayStation VR, and possibly avoiding the Quest? I know graphical limitations, you know, is obviously an issue, and your game looks absolutely gorgeous so far. But why those two platforms in particular?
Right. So I guess when we first started this, you know, it was a few years back. I guess PC VR was kind of the area in which we could get the most fidelity out of. The Quest was still early. When we were pitching this in, actually, it was still in development. And we just weren't 100% confident on whether or not we could develop the same concept on that device. So I think this was a better place for us to start. And, you know, eventually we might port across to that and, you know, work on a title on the Quest, a port. So, but for us, initially, this made a lot more sense to serve this market, even though it's potentially smaller.
I think the vision we have for the game and the I guess the concept of instantly, you know, snapping to another time and era was a difficult enough task without having to tackle the hardware of the Quest. And it was, I mean, it's tricky enough to do it for the base PlayStation. But with the PC and the PlayStation markets, there's a lot of volume still in the PlayStation market. So it seems like we couldn't ignore that.
Yeah, and there is a vision, obviously, you have of a graphical fidelity that you want to keep. You've got an idea in your mind of what this game wants to look like, and possibly at the time, especially if you're talking Oculus Quest 1, that wouldn't have happened. Like from this trailer, that would have been two very different looking games.
Oh, absolutely.
It would be beyond just reskinning. You'd have to like entirely approach the art in a completely different way.
Yeah.
You could capture the core concept of the game feel and the game mechanics. That would be transferable, I think. But yeah, the art style and stuff, I think, would be complicated.
So when it comes to PlayStation VR, this game looks like it's going to be using the moves. Is it going to be controller based as well? Can you use controller?
No.
Okay.
So it's 2 move required, I think, is the specification for it. And it's a very, very hands-on game. So it's high levels of interaction, a lot of freedom of movement and agency of environment. So it's really pushing the limits of the move, to be fair, and really kind of straddles that, like, what the move is, even the PSVR is capable of.
There's a lot of physical interaction throughout the game, physicalized hands with the environment. You know, so that really was, as Ben was saying, it is pushing what the move's capable of. But, you know, when we designed it, we also wanted to make sure that this is going to work, you know, when next-gen headsets come out as well. So we wanted something interesting and fun mechanically as you're playing through.
And like you were saying, we've taken what we thought was the best of like stuff like from Boneworks. So everything, you're physicalized, and everything is physicalized. Your presence is completely physicalized. So you bump stuff over, you can throw something into something else, which can cause, you know, whatever. It's all completely based on a physical model. So
that's awesome, because a lot of games you can basically put your hands through stuff in some games. Like they're just not there. It's just all visual. So you're telling me that everything is real basically in there.
Yeah, everything's physicalized. So we didn't want to shy away from that. We thought that was a big part of, you know, the game and being present in it. So we wanted to make sure we got that
Yeah.
right.
And we felt like that's where the VR industry should head when it comes to immersion. So like when we started, there was very few games doing that. I think Boneworks, I think part of the hype of Boneworks was the fact that that was a tentpole in terms of their features.
Yeah.
And then we started to see a few more games start to do that. And I think really that if you're trying to make a high level of immersion, I think you've got to embrace that concept. And especially your hands as well. Like your hands are so important to your immersion, how they work, what they respond to, how they grab things, how those poses look, all that kind of stuff. So we spent a lot of time working on that kind of thing to make sure that your hands don't bring you out of it. So that, you know, like everything to do with the hands, every decision keeps you in that world.
So let's talk about Wanderer then. Let's talk about the story. Let's talk about what's going on with this game. Like, tell me about it. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so the game, I guess you play as the key character, Asher Newman, and you find yourself in like a post-apocalyptic version of Boston in 2061. You know, the streets are flooded. You know, nature has taken the city back. And
yeah, it's a future that obviously has just gone to the dogs. It's not obviously a great future.
Yeah,
I kind of would think of The Last of Us when you're talking about stuff like that. Obviously, this is further in the future than that, but it just that's what I visualize. Yeah.
But we really wanted to try balance that with making this beautiful world. So it's beautiful, like the water looks really nice. There's plants and stuff, but it's just there's no one around. There's the scattered remains of, you know, a civilization that's been lost essentially. And then, yeah, without giving too much away, there is a few ragtag kind of survivors, I guess, that that can pose kind of a threat. And then, you're tasked with finding your grandfather's apartment. So a really nice way to kind of introduce you to this world, and you kind of travel through it for a little while, and then eventually find your grandfather's apartment, where you start to unlock a lot of secrets to do with, okay, well, this is one outcome for the world's future, but your grandfather's kind of left you some stuff to kind of maybe start to change that.
Is this so? Are you talking about a different dimension, or are you talking about changing time?
No, so it's kind of more like cause and effect through timelines. Yeah,
butterfly effect kind of thing.
Yeah. So the games, once you kind of discover, you find the companion, the watch, you start to realize that you have this purpose that your grandfather's left you, and you start to uncover these objects. We call them antiquity fragments, and they're like objects that are imbued with like a memory, and you can basically use them to travel into someone else's consciousness. And so you embody a whole other character. And so your hands change, and you're a whole different person. You might be female, male, old, young.
Sounds like Quantum Leap a little bit.
Yeah, I was just about to say. So, if you liken it to Quantum Leap, where you jump into somebody else's physical body.
Wow, that sounds so cool.
Yeah, so that was kind of our way of that person belonging in that world without people going, well, what the hell is this guy doing?
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you've ever watched a show called Dark. It's a time travel show on Netflix, but we kind of watched, that kind of came out or was kind of popular within our first year of development.
Yeah.
And we all kind of watched it. It's got a really interesting way of storytelling, like, and the perspective of that storytelling. So there's like characters within that show where you're watching the show from maybe a few characters' perspective, and because you're watching it from that perspective, you only get the relativity in terms of time from their perspective. So you start to see they meet older versions of themselves, not realizing who it is, all this kind of stuff coming into play. And it's really interesting. And it also has multiple forms of time travel that really open the story up. So we actually took a lot of inspiration from that I was about to call it a game. that show. Yeah, so we have the conscious kind of form of time travel, and that really is the foundation for most of the gameplay. It allows you to embody another character and take on their story. So meet the other characters that are involved with that character in that particular era, work out what's gone wrong, try to fix it, essentially.
So a lot of our areas, there's an obvious problem that's happened there. And when you get there the first time, you realize that. But the idea is to bounce back to that and solve it over time. You may not be able to do it initially, but throughout the game, you can come back to it and revisit and try and mend what was broken in that timeline and fix, the overall story. I think.
So, how would you describe this game? Is this like a puzzle room solving kind of?
So we kind of think of it as like an adventure game meets an next generation escape room.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
Escape room,
it's not
kind of, is it?
It's not the.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't sound like. I wanted to say escape room, but then I thought, no, that's the too easy way of trying to say what I'm trying to say.
And you're
I
not
was struggling.
trying to escape an environment.
No.
You're trying to understand an environment and how to solve XYZ problems.
Yeah.
And so it borrows a lot from if you look at games like I Expect You to Die, where there's a catalyst of things you have to do in order to jump through. I've got to do this to fix that, and then that opens this, and I'll get these objects, and I can use these. So it uses that kind of concept, but within quite large environments that you have full agency over. And you also have full agency over where you want to be in time. So you can just leave a timeline pretty much any time, go to another one that you have access to. So you can jump with full agency anywhere you want that you have access to. By the end of the game, you have access to everywhere, obviously. And so you can think, maybe I need that item that I had back in 1969, take that to there and use that. So the game's complexity kind of expands as you unlock more and more time errors with more and more antiquity fragments.
It's more of an adventure game than it is an escape room. So it really is about finding objects in different eras, bringing them to those places that you could use to potentially fix an issue, or use them on a machine or a puzzle, and progress that way. So it's kind of has a slight escape room-esque feel to it, but by no means it's probably more of an adventure, I'd say.
In the environments, are these environments, can you move around in them? Are they free moving environments?
Free to move. So they're all designed in a way that the natural way that environment's formed creates the boundaries of where you can and can't go. The World War II area that you go to is set in this kind of giant manor that's been repurposed by the German army for rocket research, essentially. And you can explore the entire manor. I don't know how many rooms it's got, probably
I don't know off the top of my head.
Wow, it's so strange, because in my mind I'd think of it like just a room, like a little 2 meter by 2 meter play space.
And you can go down to the basement, and without giving too much away, you actually leave the manor entirely and go somewhere else. But anyway, I won't spoil that. But
there's plenty of places to explore. Some of our maps are larger than others, obviously, but we've tried to kind of pack little bits of detail and things to look for. Part of our game is upgrading your watch. So throughout the experience, you'll be able to find items and bring those items back and use those to craft new watch skins.
What was the ideas behind the different times that you wanted to visit? So you mentioned World War II, which instantly excites people. Visiting the moon instantly is going to excite people.
Yeah, so there's a real balance there, and we'll be straight up. So we tried to balance story with, I guess, tentpole moments in history that people love, and then balance that alongside with aesthetically different environments. So it was a combination of all those things that we thought, okay, so we don't want all the environments to feel the same, because it won't be as interesting and it won't be as kind of eye-popping when you transition to a new era. You won't be like, whoa, so okay, I was just in the jungle and now I'm in the snow. That was part of it. Then the story part, which me and Hughes worked a lot on, which was how can we link certain eras together? Where can we find threads that connect, you know, World War II to XYZ to XYZ? And not all the timelines have that direct link, but some of them do, which is really nice.
Interesting places in history as well.
Yeah, and characters too.
And characters.
That was a big part of it. Like, we have some real characters from history where we've been able to, and then other times we've had to fictionalize things where we've had to as well.
Hey, do you know,
so,
it sounds a bit like Bill and Ted's Adventure a little bit when you talk about.
there is an element to that. Like,
I mean?
So each era has a tone and a kind of its own story arc. So there'll be a problem and a set of characters or whatever, and across kind of 3 acts, you'll complete that. And so like our festival era from 1969 is more of like a comedic one, definitely more of a comedic one where the solutions to problems are involve like it.
Yeah,
I won't say too much.
They're a little outrageous.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
And I guess the thing with like you can take any item from anywhere in time to another era in time. So in that Bill and Ted kind of vibe, you can end up with like a Nerf gun in, you know, 325 in the jungle, like shooting at, you know, whatever.
Back to the Future, man. Why has he got a life preserver on? Love it.
Yeah.
That sounds great. It sounds really good.
But then on the flip side, there's some really serious content too.
Yeah.
So, and the story overall probably has more of a serious tone rather than a comical one. But the watch is always there, I guess. He's kind of like your inner thoughts, I guess.
He's a little comic relief sometimes as well. Kind of lightens the mood at times with intense moments as well. So,
so you say he. So the watch is an AI, I take it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I was trying to think is when we talked about Quantum Leap, I was then thinking of Ziggy as well. When you started referring to the watch as him, I was thinking, oh, that really reminds me of like Ziggy turning up and like banging the bloody device. He's like, what's going on? I was just thought,
that's really interesting. I never thought about that.
Because that's what he was, wasn't he? He'd be like the guy who would help you. He'd be like, right, you're here, Sam. This is what you're doing. This is where you are. This is who you are. And I think this is what you've got to do. It might not be what you got to do, but I think it's what you've got to do.
That's a really good comparison,
to be fair. He's pretty much like, I mean, we took one mechanic straight out of escape rooms, which was you can call the reception desk in an escape room. And basically be like, I'm stuck. Give me help me.
Yeah, so we do the same. So he's on your wrist and you press the button and he pops out and then, you know, delivers a bit of a hand. So
and we took that from the Room VR as well. So I don't know if you played the Room, but
I have. Yeah, it's very good.
In that you can they have clues, basically, a tier system for clues. So we basically have similar thing. It's not tiered, but if you get stuck, you just pop the watch out. It'll give you a clue. Maybe we should go try this thing or whatever.
Yeah.
And keep you on track.
Guys, this game sounds fantastic. How long has it been in development? So I think you mentioned years, like 2-3 years.
Almost 3 years. Yeah. I mean, like we built a prototype over 3 years ago.
It sounds fantastic, and it really does sound like it's going to live up to the trailer. There's so many games that have a really great trailer in VR, and then when you play them, you're like, this is not that. And this is sounding exactly like that. I mean, that was all gameplay anyway, wasn't it?
Yeah, all of our trailers, bar a few like cinematic pans and stuff. There's no cinematics in the game. Like it's all, everything happens around you. Yeah, I guess the one thing that we've always worried about a little bit with our trailers is like the game is not, it's not a first-person shooter. So it's an adventure game and it's about exploring and discovering these worlds and tackling these problems that you've found that you find yourself in each different era. And some of that will involve defending yourself, obviously, and finding weapons and ammo and that kind of stuff. And then some of it won't involve weapons at all.
When it comes to puzzle games, we'll see sometimes you've mentioned already that you can get hints off your watch and you can get help. What kind of difficulty level is this game? You know, because sometimes there are some games that I played in the past where I think playtesting comes a lot into it, because when someone develops a game, the game is made on how they think. Yeah. So with this game, what level of difficulty and how, I guess, open are the puzzles?
That's a really good question. I think we can't give you an answer that says it's easy, it's hard. People find different parts hard.
Yeah.
Because it's like an adventure game with like puzzle elements. Yeah. Some people will struggle with this part, others with this part. So what we've tried to focus on is why those people have struggled at those areas and what we can do to help that. And sometimes that's changing it bits with design. Maybe that's updating a hint so it's clearer. Maybe that's
positioning an item somewhere that might be a little bit easier for them to notice.
That's the important stuff. That's the important stuff, I would say. You've ticked all the technical stuff out of the way, and yeah, I get that. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
it's a hard balance though, making sure that you have the difficulty just right and not too easy and not too hard.
Yeah.
So I can't promise it's going to be perfect either, but we've kind of done our best to make sure that each of those puzzles is solvable by testers, and that they find them fun as well. Because that's quite important to make sure.
I think that's almost more important as making them like immersive and interesting and fun as well.
That's exactly what I was going to say. The more you're invested in it, the more likely you are to figure it out anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And
there's a real mixture of puzzles. Some of them are small and sort of contained to a single place. Others are like the entire level. And then of course you've got like the eras themselves, so they're a whole puzzle in themselves.
Okay, so this game obviously being on PlayStation, a big thing for PlayStation users are achievements. Is there any specific achievements that you want to talk about quickly that or you might think might be really hard?
There is one in particular that's quite a challenge, and that's completing the game in, I think it's less than 20 time jumps.
Right. Okay.
So it's almost you have to thread the needle and play the game almost perfectly to be able to.
It's going to take
more than.
I think that one's really going to take some sitting down and thinking this one through.
I mean, that'd be hard for us to do. I think, like, I'd have to probably script how I want to play.
Yeah, write it down. Okay, jump here, get this, jump there, get that.
The thing is, you do know someone out there is going to play this game better than any of you. There's someone out there. It's going to happen.
I guess with that as well.
And no dying either.
You can't. So if you die in another person's body, you kind of desync back to your base reality again, and you've got to go back and try again. So for that specific one, there's no desync, there's no dying.
Yeah. You can also kill any character in the game, and depending on whether that aligns with the watch's plan and the grandfather's plan for time, the watch will actually pull you out of the timeline if you kill the wrong person.
So that person,
but it's quite funny. It means you can literally take a bow and arrow and go shoot Tedra in the head.
Oh man, that sounds absolutely great. That sounds so cool. I love that. Okay, yeah. So I guess my next question would actually probably be too much for the story, I think, which would be, so the grandfather he knows of a different reality that could happen if certain events changed, and the watch is programmable with that timeline of events that you need to try and follow to make that happen.
Somewhat programmable. Yeah. He's also a little in the dark, so he's on this journey with you.
Yeah.
He's learning and recalling certain things as well. So I think you're not wrong in saying that they have an idea of what the outcome should be, and they're guiding you along that path.
And without saying too much, I guess one of the key story points is the grandfather has his concept of what the timeline should be, and then there's another entity that has their concept. And so you're not the only one that's messing with time.
Wow. Oh my God. It sounds great. It's like bloody Doctor Who, Quantum Leap, Back to the Future. It's like loads, and then you got the games on top of it. It sounds fantastic. I love how passionate you are about this. Honestly, I'm so excited about this. As I said, when we saw the trailer, we had it on our podcast. I was like, damn, that looks like a bloody movie. And You're literally saying all the right things as well. And you mentioned the key element, and that is playtesting. You can't, you know, as you said, you're still going to go out there in the wild, and there's going to be some people whose thought patterns are just completely different. You know, like every time I go into a game, I did some like game testing when I was younger, and I don't know whether it affected how I play games now, but I tend to try and do things because I shouldn't sometimes. So, you know, it's just interesting that when you mentioned playtesting, like it sounds great. It sounds really good. It sounds like you got a great game in your hands, and I can't wait to check it out later on. Really appreciate your time. Thank you. Is there anything you'd like to put out there as a message? Is there anything you'd like to add to this?
Yeah, I mean, buy the game January 27th. It's available PSVR, Steam VR, and on Oculus.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
So, thanks, mate.
Good luck. Good luck.
Bye.